Chris here with another fresh tip for you all. In this video, we are going to continue our look at painting the little chameleon dude from the Starblood Stalkers warband from Warhammer Underworlds Direchasm. In the previous video, we had applied most of the base coat, and so we are going to continue work. We're going to get things started with some fluorescent green, some titanium white. Both are from Golden High Flow paint line. Basically, 2 drops of the fluorescent green and 1 drop of titanium white. Give it a thorough mixing, and basically we are going to begin laying in some highlights. And with these highlights, I'm applying them building brightness downwards. So on the torso itself, you'll notice that the highlights are going towards the belly. On his jaw, I push the color forward to the front of his bottom lip kind of thing, and that's where the color gets built up. On the other side, you can see there's a lot more green to see, so basically we have a little bit more work to do on this side. The other side has that little frog holster thing. Quiver? I don't know. Either way. So once we are laying this in, and you can see here, I am deliberately applying it now where that base of that tail kind of comes down, and I'm kind of just building some color on top of that darker space that we had previously laid out some of the much darker color to kind of push back on that really kind of saturated fluorescent pink. Titanium white, add another drop, making this roughly a 1-to-1 mix ratio. It's basically 2 drops of the green, 2 drops of the white, essentially, which, it's a 1-to-1. Here you can see we're simply just applying it to the high points and building up some interest. Again, trying to keep most of these areas closest towards the belly. Although I don't really paint the belly this really brightness, I really just kind of pick out some of the high points on the belly, so it's not a huge issue. We're going to use Vallejo's Model Color Yellow Fluorescence. I'm just going to put a couple drops on my palette. Really didn't need that much, but, live and learn. And with this, I basically, without thinning the color down, I just start laying this on top of the previous highlights. And the yellow basically shifts all the white values underneath towards yellow. And this gives you a very vibrant lime green look. To the eye, this is really, really bright. On camera here, you can see that it is bright, but you can see how it's really kind of pushing towards that lime green kind of quality, which I think is a lot of fun next to the fluorescent pink. We're going to use Skaven Blight Dinge and Dryad Bark. We're going to mix these in roughly a 1-to-1 mix ratio. We're not really going to add any thinners to it. Basically, we're just going to use the dampness of the brush, and very carefully, we are going to begin painting the tree trunk or tree branch, whatever it is. Tree trunk, I think it is. And basically, we are going to apply this over the entirety of these details. Now, one thing to be said here is that this color looks really, really dark, and it is pretty dark. But it also is because of the camera. The camera, because I have the f-stop turned down, the bark of the tree looks really, really dark. We're going to jump back over to those same colors, and we're also going to add a drop of Storm Vermin Fur. So basically this is going to be like a 1-to-1-to-1 ratio. So basically just 1 drop, and 1 drop of the Skaven Blight Dinge. Give it a thorough mixing and begin the highlighting process. Now, the whole reason behind using these colors to paint the tree and the wood is because I don't want a very bright brown. I actually want more of a desaturated brown. I actually want it to push towards gray, more like basically like a dead tree. Dead trees often tend to go very gray in the woods, especially if they're uprooted and what have yous. And so basically that's the whole point of this, is that it's kind of like a dead stump thing, whatever this tree happens to be. I have no idea. It's a jungle tree. It's a jungle tree. And with this, I basically just paint the high points of each of the surface details, leaving just that base color in the recesses and the nooks and crannies of the details of the tree. I don't bother trying to create a bark texture on the surface. I'm just pretty much straight up going for pure color. Here I've changed the camera settings so that we can see the details of the trunk a little bit better. I've also added another drop of Skaven Blight Dinge to the mixture, so it's kind of like a 1-to-1-to-2. to Skaven Blade tinge, just so it's pushing more to a brighter gray. Again, because we're using this light gray, and I haven't thinned the color down, just other than the dampness of the brush, just to thin the color out ever so slightly. And we are basically highlighting this in a typical fashion in which we highlight, so it's more akin to like an edge highlight along surfaces. Although some of the areas I do just catch just the parts that are, you know, kind of upward facing, like where natural light would gather. I don't do every edge with this color. I just, you know, didn't really feel like it. Storm Vermin Fur is next, all on its lonesome, just the dampness of the brush to thin the color out. And very, very carefully here, we're going to catch just the top edges and corners and things of that nature of this tree branch thing, detail. I don't know, whatever it is. Again, you can see as we work these highlights, we get more and more minimal as we go, because again, we want to leave the impression of a gradient on these surfaces. And if you end up just covering over your previous highlight with your brand new color, you're not create gradients. And so you have to get used to basically working less and less of the area. So you want to get finer and finer with where you're laying your color down. Next, we're going to jump over to some Dryad bark, slap a little bit onto the palette. We're going to take a generous amount of water into the brush, kind of thin this down, make it nice and loose. And basically, we're just going to base coat the brush, or base coat the base of the model. I'm going with just straight up Dryad bark because I'm going for this kind of really mucky ground surface. Basically this kind of theme I think I'm going to run with basically for all of the lizardmen in this box set. I also paint his little quiver of poison darts as well in this color. Screamer Pink is next, and with this I'm going to put this onto the palette, and I thin it down almost to a glaze consistency, and I begin laying this on top of anywhere where I had that previous amount of blue. It was just a little too intense. It pulls me out. And so I wanted to push it more towards, you know, deeper magentas and deeper red purple kind of colors. I take a generous amount of water, grab a little bit of the paint, and then begin just kind of thinning it down into a really thin glaze. And with this, I push that color towards the center point of that crest, again, to get a little bit more color depth, create a little bit more contrast, but also because I want to knock out a little bit of that kind of really bright purple that was showing through. I just wasn't 100% behind it when I did it, and as the model has progressed on, I become less and less a fan of it. And, you know, live and learn. As I said in the beginning of this little series, I'm basically making this up as I go, and this is pretty much evident here as I'm just kind of just playing with color and just, you know, seeing what works, basically just throwing a bunch of stuff on the wall and just seeing what sticks. And I'm kind of having fun with this. He's really, really garish. He's really, really bright, but he's a chameleon, and, you know, oh wait, chameleons are supposed to blend in with stuff, aren't they? Anyway, that's it. This is part 2, and stay tuned for part 3 as we continue work. Hopefully we get this little guy done in a timely fashion so we can move on to other projects. Big thank you to my patrons. Without their support, these videos would not be possible. If you're considering Patreon support, click the link in the description below. And a huge thank you to everybody who does. Take care of those brushes, and they will take care of you.